going to.
Okay.
I'm trying to apply this to the wall.
Yeah.
Wait, can you apply to the arena? Because the
Wait, I
arena,
haven't done anything.
the arena encloses the floor.
If you guys want, you can like stand here or like find a table and like kneel at the table or whatever. But we're not gonna be able to get more chairs. I don't think. It seems like everything else is locked. So
This
we will be
lecture is also
posting the video
recorded.
online.
You guys are
afterwards,
welcome.
probably
Yeah.
tomorrow or something. Well, the text-based tutorial as well. And then I think we're gonna try to get a bigger room for next week. So yeah,
For the video, there's like.
it's recording.
It's like.
Yeah, I'm recording right now.
Screen pass. Yeah.
Okay.
So change the worry about that. But come back next week. We'll put a bigger room.
There no shit. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is like rotation.
See.
Alright, I guess let's just get started. So hello guys, thanks for coming out. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna work on level design and UI. Last week, this is what we have so far. Here, let me show you. We have a simple ball that rolls around and picks up objects. So right now, there's no really like point to the game. We just kind of like roll around. So hopefully we're gonna have like a way to win the game, and like a way to have like a way to pick up, like to know how many pickups you've picked up, because the point of the game of rollerball is to collect all the pickups and then you win the game. So we have no way to know how many pickups we've had, and we also want to have a way to make more interesting levels. So
For the beginners, right here, right?
yeah, this is the beginner workshop. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import a standard asset, which is like a package that is basically what someone else has created for us, and we can use it for free. So we're going to go to Assets, Import Package, and Prototyping. To repeat it, you should come up. It's Assets, Import Package, and then Prototyping. And you'll see there's a bunch of stuff that we can use, so we'll import it. So go ahead and import it. Sorry, give me a second. I might have spoke. Give me a second. I'll show it to you again. It just shows custom package.
So that's like when you install Unity, there's the option to install a standard asset package.
Yeah.
When you do that, you might need to like download that. So
Yeah, you might need to download. Let me see.
And then it'll like ask you what components you want to install.
So does anyone not have the prototyping drop down?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy down tutorial.
Let's see.
So
Okay, so everyone should go to the website. Go to this website, Unity 3D. Get Unity, and then click additional downloads and download standard assets. So go to here. Yeah, let's see. What? I think it. Actually, what you guys can do is you guys can go to the Facebook and go to the here. I'll upload my package. My personal. Yeah, I'll upload the. Give me like 5 seconds.
So, do you have your
Is that this one?
this to somewhere?
CJ? Is CJ here?
Yeah, so, no, you did extract. Yeah. So just go to
Any traffic students here?
okay. So if you go to Unity, and you
I will.
decide it happens. So, I don't know where. Yeah.
For the prototyping, should we just import all of them?
Yeah, import all of them. Did you guys all figure out how to get the prototyping package, or let's see. Wait, would you mind sharing how?
No, I just had it on my drop-in menu. I
Oh, okay.
something to be updated with the versions.
Okay.
Would it have anything to do with like updating the latest version of Unity or something?
You might. I think it might have been like a download option when you downloaded Unity in the first place.
Yeah, I'm just worried that they're not.
So download this Unity package. I put it on the Facebook. It should have everything completed, but all you would need to do is just import the prototyping part of the package, I think, when it pops up. So let's like I would download it. You have the package, and then it should pop up in Unity, and then you can see here it will have all the stuff that you can import, and it should have prototyping here. So wait.
Is the post you made 2 hours ago?
Huh?
Is it the post you made?
Yeah, I edited the post. Or I can just
How do we keep this? Which one are we?
just the prototyping standard assets here.
All those numbers.
Let me just fix.
Do we just download these?
It should come as one package if you download.
Okay, so it's download.
It's on the Facebook. It's right here. Wait. Actually.
Did you download it with like a link that said open in Unity, or did you open?
Why does this club work mostly mostly welcome the beginners?
Huh?
Yeah, you try to download it from
Alright, this should be a better link.
once you download it, there's like a thing open up that where you download it. So I would just import the prototyping unless you want to finish on that.
Yeah. So does everyone have that? Sorry about that. I didn't know.
Whenever you click on the package, we download just.
We don't want to
use your name. the Canvas Unity package. Yeah, so you should be able to go into your project. Yeah, it should.
So just to repeat that, if you go here, open the package, download it, open it. While you have Unity open, it should pop up with this, and then instead you'll have like a prototyping, and then click the check mark next to prototyping, and then import everything next to it.
This is fast a little bit.
So maybe all of these. This kind of just popped up when I uploaded my instance. And then the standard assets and everything. Unless you wanted to do like just the.
Oh yes, that's fine. It's not.
Thank you for shipping the product. You know, afterwards, can you just kind of delete the thing you download? Afterwards, would you be able to just delete the standard?
Yeah, you can delete the download.
So it's not gonna show up. Do you download it from like the website that he showed you? Okay, so then you need to go to the package.
Yeah, you download this.
And navigate where you downloaded it. So then just download probably.
Open it as documents.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
Usually you can have standard assets.
Okay. So from the same thing you see right now, you're on title C. Do you have the same passage?
I know that you didn't download this. So it's weird because like when I download it, I just always got the standard. I'm not sure.
Maybe there's some setting that we missed. Alright, is everybody good?
Okay, so under the standard assets folder, it's just the prototyping. Everything the prototyping. That's a double click it.
Okay, I would just click none and then against the
Oh yeah. And then everything under
My system.
Does anyone not have the prototyping package?
Is that in the center? There's only a center.
Did you have the?
Yeah, I have already downloaded it and I just opened it, but it's not.
I mean, were you here for last week?
No, no.
Oh, okay. If you have been here for last week's tutorial, you should download the.
You can go where you want.
Yeah, and then download.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so you need to open the package. You need to open this project and then import it into that project. It's just the presets, right? So you have.
I imported everything.
But did you download did you open the oh no, yeah.
Open this and all.
Wait, we're gonna import back. I'll talk about it. I'm just waiting for
I have no idea. So for some reason, I downloaded multiple. So now this process where they're full, link up there and the download the same just download it just let me there will see more than it. So that's where okay. So yeah, it's really your Awesome.
Okay. Is everyone good? Does everyone have the prototyping folder? So under project, you should have standard assets and then prototyping. Okay, so now that we have that, excuse me, everyone, can you guys? So now that we have that, we're gonna make a new scene. We're gonna create a new level. So go to your in scenes, the scenes folder. Go to create scene, and we'll just call this level 1. And then open it up, and you should get like a empty scene. Did everyone get that? So what we're going to do is we're going to use the prototyping folder that we just imported to create a really basic level a lot faster than we did before. Because before what we were doing was we were making each wall, each plane. But now that we have the prototyping folder, we can do all of that pretty easily by going to, so under the prototyping folder, go to prefabs, and you'll see a list of prefabs that we can use to make levels. So for here, what we'll do is we'll make a really quick floor. I'll use full floor prototype 4x1x4, and you'll see it pops up in the scene. It's like a nice little floor for us to use. And so what we'll also do is we'll try and we'll use the player that we had from last time. It should be in our prefabs. Oh no, okay. So go back to. Is everyone good? So what we're gonna want to do is, so we last week we worked on a player, but we need to make it a prefab so we can constantly use it again. So how it works is like a prefab is like a way to generalize an object and use it like multiple times. So what we'll want to do is we'll want to go open the prefabs folder, go into the scene, and then drag player into the prefab folder. And then you'll see it pops up here, and we'll be able to use it in any other scene that we want. So go to open the sample scene that's in the project, go to player, and then click and drag it into the prefabs folder so that we can use it for the next scene. So now that we have our player prefab, we can go back into the scene, the level 1, and we can use that player prefab into this new level that we have. It should have all of the things that we worked on last week, which is like a way to control it with WASD, like the sphere collider, all of that stuff, and it should still be there. The scene. Go to scenes, create, right click, and then create, and then it should be under scene. So, does everyone have this?
Someone doesn't have like the scenes that are already made.
I'm going to make the scenes folder too. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's whatever scene we were doing with last week's. Yeah. Yeah. So now that we have a player, we can see if you look on the when we play the game, our player that we worked on before is still there, and we can move it around. So the next thing we want to do is, if you guys remember from last week, we changed the camera to always follow our player. So we're just gonna do a quick review of that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna first move the camera. So it let's do a quick review of moving around in the scene. So you can right click to move around, WSD or right click and then hold to look around, and then WSD to move around while you have right click selected. And you can move the camera. You can look around the scene. You can see there's the camera. Here's our floor, and here's the ball. So what we're going to do is move the camera to a better position. So we're going to move it to 0. Just a good position I found was like 0, 4, 5. 0, 4, negative 5. Wait. And then I'm going to rotate it down negative 20. Actually, it's a little high. Let me move it down. 0, 2, negative 5. And then 20. You can move it however you want, but whatever looks good. You can see from the game window, how it'll look when you actually play the game. And then now that we found a good height and offset for the camera, we're gonna attach what we were using before, which is the camera controller, onto our main camera so that it follows our player as we play the game. So what we're going to do is go to scripts and then drag it onto the main camera. So to repeat that, I'm going to take the camera controller in the scripts folder and drag it onto the main camera. And then as you'll see if you go to the inspector, it should have our camera controller on it. Does anybody have any questions? Did you use it's whatever we did last week? It's just the camera controller that we're using. I don't know how you organized it last week, but it's just that part.
Actually, I just like this.
Is everybody around there? Okay, so now we also need to tell the camera controller that where our player first is. So what we're going to do is we're going to click the player and then drag it right here to where it's trying to take in a player as an argument. So as you can see,
Where can I find the...
we're gonna drag the player onto the camera controller's script. Did everyone get that? And then if you play the game, you should see that wherever you move the ball, it should follow along pretty well. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't know where the focus is supposed to be.
I don't have to wear.
Did you keep your scripts?
Okay.
Or did you store them? I don't know they're called scripts.
I don't know where you got this. This is my. They can't.
Basically, you find that wherever that layer and set it to your main camera.
Yeah, so I'll just repeat that if anyone didn't get that. We attach the camera controller to our main camera, and then we're gonna drag the player into the player argument in the camera controller script in the inspector. Okay, so now that we have like now that our game kind of works, we can start adding more and more to make the level more interesting. So what I like to do is just drag in a bunch of floor prototypes and move it around so we have like a nice platform to roll around on. So just a review of the scene. We can press Control. We can move our objects by clicking on them and then moving them with these arrows. If you hold Control when you move them, they'll move by one unit instead of just like a random amount. You can also adjust the positions by putting it into the transform in the inspector. And another thing you can do too is when you drag it along, you can hold V and you can make it snap to other vertices in the scene. So here you can see it's hard, like it might be hard to like perfectly match this up, but if you hold V and then click and hold, it'll immediately snap to another floor prototype in the scene, which is nice. Yeah, so in the scene, we can move these around with the axes or just moving it. But it might be nice to have a way to like push it like right next to each other. So what you can do is you can hold V while hold V, like V for vertex, and click a vertex, and then it'll immediately snap to any other vertex in the scene. Yeah, which is nice. So what you can do is just so as you can see, like with the prototyping standard asset, you can make levels pretty easily instead of having to make each floor individually or yeah. So what we're gonna make today is a bounce pad, which will when the player hits the bounce pad, it'll like shoot up or shoot in whatever direction we want. So the very first thing we're gonna do, let's set up for the bounce pad first. So like let's make a really tall cube. Oh shit, that's too big. I clicked cube 4x4x4, but any of them will work. I'm just gonna put two of them on top of each other. So now you see we have like a pretty simple wall that the player can jump across. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our bounce pad now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the scene, go to right click the empty scene, and then go to create 3D plane. Did everyone get that? I'll do it again. So I'm going to my level hierarchy. I'm going to right click, go to 3D object, and then plane. Yeah. So the plane is pretty good, but it's a little big too. I'm gonna put it next to the player. I changed its position to 0, 0, 0, and then I'm gonna scale it down to 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. Maybe like move it up a little bit on the Y. And then I'm also going to move it up a little bit because that's where we're going to put our bounce pad. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to just rename it real quick so we don't get confused. I'm going to call it bounce pad. Does everyone have this so far?
Just like getting the bounce pad.
This isn't. We're gonna make the prefab, but this is what we did was we just made an empty plane, just a pretty plane. Yeah. So you can tell it's not a prefab yet because it's not blue. Anything that's blue is a prefab. Like that's already made. Is everybody good? Any questions?
Excuse me, how to make the white thing here on the
Okay.
So I don't think we did walls together.
What?
You didn't attach the wall.
Attach?
Yeah, they're just like next.
Yeah, they're just next to each other. Yeah, they're just two walls, two cubes.
So if you fan, or you use a controller and then drag it.
It's right here. How do you put it in the level? So what I did is I created a plane. Okay, so I right-clicked the level, right-clicked here, did create 3D object, plane. And then what I did is I dragged it into the position that I wanted, and then scaled it down, and that's a jump pad. Good question.
So explain one more time, like the snapping. Having a hard time like snapping the cube to the ground.
So just a review. If you want to snap objects to each other, what you can do is you can in the scene tab, hold V, and then drag your object to where you want it to be snapped to. So you can see it's snapping to any kind of vertex in the scene too. So I just put it right there. You can honestly do whatever you want, but I just thought that looked better. Yeah.
That's the camera.
I didn't actually
So if you get on the camera, Q and
Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Oh, are you trying to do like in blocks?
What?
So we do that.
That's a right click on Yes. I have many floors.
Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna just attach a material to our bounce pad just so it looks a little better. I'm just gonna use like pink. That actually. So. Yeah, so gonna go to bounce pad, and then in the mesh renderer, there's a thing called element 0. Just drag pink smooth onto it, and then yeah, it's in the standard assets prototyping materials folder. You can pick any material you really want. Any of them will be fine. Yeah, it doesn't matter the color. It's just personal preference. Okay, so now what we're going to want to do is we're gonna want to make our bounce pad push the player up in the way that we want it. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach a script to it. New script. We're going to call it like bounce or something. Anything you really want. Create an ad. I should bring it up in the.
Where can I find the bounce pad?
The bounce pad? Did you create it earlier? Okay, so then I'm going to edit the script. I'm going to open up the bounce script. Alright, did everyone get to opening up the script? Yes?
You go to the script that you created, so that's how you did you already have
So you have
Okay, is everyone good? Okay, so now we're gonna do something pretty similar to our pickup controller that we made last week. So what we're gonna be using is that same function, void on trigger enter. Cool. Yeah. So just a quick review of what this function is doing is every object in the scene has these functions, and on trigger enter is one of them. So Unity will decide when someone touches this object that we have, it'll call this function called on trigger enter, which is a special function. And what we're doing is we're going to have it so that if someone touches our bounce pad, we're going to jump up super fast. So that's why we're using this function instead of like making another function and then like calling it. Yeah. So once we have our function, what we're going to do is so the collider other is the object that our bounce pad is colliding with, right? It could be anything. It could be a wall. It could be I don't know, like a potato. It really doesn't matter. But what we want to make sure is that it only bounces our player. So what we're going to do is we're going to do other dot compare tag player. So what we're saying right now is if the thing that we're colliding with or triggering has the tag player, we are going to do something to it. So now what we're going to want to do is, I think Robert covered this before, but what we wanted to adjust the physics of an object, we want to use rigid body. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the rigid body of the thing that we're colliding with. So I'm going to say rigid body equals other dot get component rigid body. So this is saying something that if nobody has programming experience is that we need to initialize variables, which means that we need to say, okay, we're telling the computer that okay, now we have this thing called RB that we're going to be using later. So all of these like objects have stuff that we can do with them. So like in this case, what we're going to want to do is we're going to add a force up to the thing that we're colliding with, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do is rb.addForce, and then you can see here that it takes a vector 3, which is just a vector, and it's saying which way you want to add force into. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this dot transform up, which is basically saying, okay, I'm taking the bounce pad, and whatever orientation is up, and I'm going to use that as my way to choose which way I propel the object. Do you have a question?
So is the up direction determined by the properties of the plane?
It's determined on how you actually put it in the scene. So right now you can see that green arrow is basically our up vector. But if we rotated it like 90 degrees, the up vector could be like right, or like it would be like facing right or facing left. So it's cool because we can like rotate the bounce pad to however we want.
If we were doing something else, like, you know, like would it default to the y direction?
Wait. Yeah, every object has an up, regardless. Yeah, it's not just the plane. You can see like even the cube has an up. Yeah. So we're gonna do this dot transform dot up times. Let's just do 10 or something right now, because right now this dot transform dot up is always just a vector that has a magnitude of 1, if you guys don't know what that means, basically is that it won't tell it to bounce very far. So we're just gonna add times 10 to make it easier, and then what we're gonna also add is a thing called force mode impulse. Force mode.impulse. So this is just something that's telling the Unity how to add the force, because there are different ways. You could add it like all at once or instantaneously, or you can do it over a period of time. So what force mode.impulse is just telling it to apply the force immediately all at once. Yeah. So does everyone have this so far? Okay, so now that we have this, we're gonna go back to our scene.
Force mode, comma, or dot impulse?
Dot impulse. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into our scene. We should check. We can play the game. It should. Okay, so did you see how little that bounce was? It's pretty small. So what we can do is we want some way that we can like change it easily. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna declare a variable called public float bounce power. Right now, let's just say on trigger enter. It's not public or private because it's something that Unity it's private basically, because nothing could call it, but yeah, you don't really need to put private on it if you don't need to. So I'm gonna just declare a public variable called float, and instead of 10, I'm gonna use that. And then this is something that we covered last week, but if you make a variable public, we can actually change it in the in the Unity editor, not in the code. So if you go to your bounce script, you can see that it has a bounce power, and then we can change how much it bounces in the editor instead of having to go back and like change the code over and over again.
You have to change the bounce power within Unity. Is there like a save, or is it just automatically saved?
It's when you run this thing that it'll
Okay.
Yeah.
It didn't actually like change my script. It just I can change it in Unity and then change the file. Why is it so weak?
Yeah, so yeah.
I don't think it's blind horse.
It's weird because before it was. Let's see. I think. Oh, sorry. I totally forgot, guys. In the mesh collider, you need to. In the mesh collider, you need to make it is trigger, because that's something that Unity is looking for. It needs to be a trigger. That's why we're using on trigger enter. Yeah, sorry, I totally forgot. But now it should work. Yeah.
You can click convex as well.
Yeah, you can only click is trigger if you click convex. Don't worry about it. So 1,000 is a little much. I think 15 is about good. It's pretty good. So I can see, yeah. Alright, did everyone reach that point? Let me just repeat that in case anyone missed it. So in the mesh collider of your bounce pad object, you need to check off convex and is trigger for your on trigger enter function to work.
come when I change my script in my Visual Studio, it doesn't apply on it'll stay as it takes the media under.
I know why there's a compiler error. I don't know how to set the default things to say Visual Studio, but not not the default thing.
You feel like
the thing is for you, you're like, so what I did,
you should be able to change the
I recommend you use this because it's probably not
yeah, I was afraid when you were like doing like your and stuff, like
it was fine before. Yeah. I'm not so good at file manipulation, and now I'm so
Alright, is everybody good? I just want to say, so from now you can see like how you can kind of make more interesting levels. So like this doesn't have to be transform.up. It could be like transform.like right. And what you could do is you could have like a speed up, power up, or like you could even like rotate your bounce pad. So like let's say, well just to show an example, what I could do is take this, like rotate it. If you really, this is just an example. You don't have to do this, but so what we can do is like you could even have this. You can have it bounce like in different directions. So I just wanted to. This is just a good, just one way to use Unity, but I hope you guys like think about like cool, interesting ways that you can work with this stuff. So like, let's say I'm gonna make this a prefab real quick. Yeah. So go to the scene and then drag it into the prefabs folder so you can use it again. And then you can like even make a ton of bounce pads and just like stack them up. So even though they're floating in the air, like you can see, you can have it like stack up. So there's just like a lot of options you can do, and you should really like think about how we want to make this like an interesting game. But for now, I'm just going to delete all of them. But yeah. So one more thing that we noticed is that right now when we play, if we fall off, we kind of just like float off into the abyss. And the only thing you can really do is just restart. So it's not the greatest level design. So what we're going to do is we're going to have some way, like a collider on the bottom, to make sure that if it hits it, we can like put the player back into the level. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something similar, where we go into the scene, create a 3D object, and make a plane. I'm going to drag it like below the level. I'm going to make it really big so that they can't, if they like, no matter what they do, they get hit by it. And then, so this doesn't look very good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to uncheck the mesh renderer, which will make it so that the plane is there, but it's like invisible to everyone. It's invisible to the player. Let me just repeat that. I'm going to go into the plane. I'm going to go under the mesh render and uncheck it right here. This will make it invisible. I'm just going to rename it to respawn. Or I'll just call it boundaries. So now what we want to do is we're going to make a script so that if the player hits this respawn, it'll transport them back to the level so they don't so they don't die. So I'm going to add a component. I'm going to make a new script and call it respawn controller. And I'm going to edit the scripts as we did before. Alright, is everybody good?
They're reading out on the board. How many do you make on plane?
I do like 20. It doesn't have to be super big. Okay. Does everybody have the respawn controller open? Yep. So what we're going to do is, it's going to be kind of similar to the idea of our camera, where in the beginning of the scene, we're going to keep track of the player's position, and then if they touch it, we're going to just transform them back to that position. So what we're going to do is, first thing we want to do is we want to tell, hey, we have a thing called a transform, which is a transform is basically, it keeps track of our position, our rotation, everything. Do you have a question? What?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, what? So we're going to declare a public transform called player transform. And then also a private vector3 called start position. Oops. So the very first thing we're going to do is in this. Oh, okay. So I'm going to re-explain these methods to you guys if you guys weren't here last week. So void start is something that is called on every object right when the scene begins. So when you press play, this function is called on pretty much every object in the scene. So what we can do with that is we can initialize a lot of things that we want to keep track of for later in this function. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to do vector3 start position. Oh wait, just start position equals player transform dot position. So what this is doing is we're saying, okay, in the beginning, when we first start our scene, keep track of where my player is. Because what we're going to do is when the player hits the respawn, the boundaries, we have to keep the position of the player, and then we're going to transport him into that position. So next what we're going to do is we're going to want to do something similar to what we were doing before, where we do a void on trigger enter. Just a preface, on trigger enter isn't the only way we can do it. There are other ways to do it, like on collision enter, where you're looking for a collision. But for now, we're just using triggers, which is basically as long as you pass through it. Yeah. But so we're gonna do something similar where we do if other.compare tag is player. We're going to do the same thing where we're going to say, hey, we need the rigid body of the thing we're colliding with. I'll just explain the get component too. Get component is basically saying, do you see all of these, like properties of our objects? Like it has a transform, a plane, mesh render, mesh collider. So get component is actually saying, get one of these components and store it for now. Yeah, go ahead.
Is rigid body all the components together, or is it just one specific?
It's one specific component. You can see here that we're looking specifically for a rigid body.
Yeah.
So in our player object, we're actually getting this specific component.
Okay.
So you could do like, get component player controller, or get component sphere collider. It's just something that to keep in mind for later. But yeah, so we're going to get the rigid body, and what we're going to want to do is just go to the rigid body's transform, which is what stores its position. Go to rigidbody.transform.position, and then set it to the position that we stored before. Okay, and then just another quick tidbit is that when you do dot, for anyone who doesn't have like CS knowledge, when you do dot, we're saying it's the same idea. It's similar to get component in that we're taking a something of the rigid body. So like say here we're taking the transform of the rigid body, and then we're taking the position of that transform. It's similar to get component, but it's just like a better way to, not better way to do it, but a way to do it. Just in case anyone didn't know. And then we're gonna save it, and then we're gonna check it out. Oh, one more thing.
Do you have anything in update?
No, we don't need anything in update. Another thing is we need to make it a trigger. Don't forget that. We need to go to the bounds and make it a trigger.
So anything that is set folder as a script basically
Save it. And then as we go down, you should see that we immediately like teleport to the start. The problem right now is though that it's like keeping our like previous speed and rotation as we die. Like I'm not pressing anything right now, and it keeps rolling. So something we're gonna want to add is go back to the respawn controller, and what we're gonna want to do is set its angular velocity back to 0, because angular velocity is like rolling, right? So we're gonna go to rb.angularvelocity. And then set it to vector 3.0. So that's just saying, okay, take the rigid body and then make it stop rotating. So I'm going to go back and then try it out. Make sure that it worked. Yeah. Okay, is everyone good? Oh, here, let me show you the.
What does it say on the side reference exception, the variables? It had it on yours as well.
Oh, yeah, sorry. What we're also going to want to do real quick is, I think right now it's just guessing the player transform. But what we're going to want to do is drag the player transform into the script on the bounds. Yeah.
Oh.
So right now I think it. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. But that'll get rid of that error on the beginning. Did you save?
Yeah, now it says keep your velocity.
Huh?
Okay, so keep your velocity.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so then slide and you say
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Okay, so I'm also going to teach you guys something important. So if something is happening that you don't think should be happening, something that's really useful to use is it's called debug.log. We're going to put it in our into our script. And so debug.log will basically just, if it's basically print statements if any of you guys are in CS. But basically what we have a console that can give us information about what's happening in the scene. So it looks like for some reason our angular velocity is not not changing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to debug.log our angular velocity. And then if you don't maximize on play and you open the console tab, we can see what it'll output when it happens. So it looks like our angular velocity is good. It might be we need to also reset our regular velocity too. Let's try that. If you don't have the console, you can
add it into your okay. I'll show it to you guys here.
If you guys do not have the console tab, I think it might be. Okay, so go to Window, General, and then Console, and it should. Did it bring it up? Yeah. So go to Console.
It's like a separate window.
You can drag it into your thing. So like if I can take it out, I can move it around. I like to put it. Yeah. That's another way. If you guys wanted to like have a layout that looks similar to mine, you can like just take all these tabs and just like move them around. So like if you wanted it here, I wanted the scene down here, you can just drag it. You can click and drag it around. But I kind of like it like this.
Did you fix it by setting the velocity to 0?
Yeah. So what I did to make it stop rotating is you also need to set the regular velocity to 0 in addition to the angular velocity, which makes sense.
Do you know why it's like that? Just because we added the
I think what was happening is that before it didn't know where to put it back, so it just defaults it and resets everything. But now that we actually did it correctly, it brought everything back. Yeah.
Velocity and debug log. What should we have in the update section?
We don't need nothing in the update section. You can just delete it. So the debug log is optional. You don't really need it, but I think it's really useful when things are happening that you don't think should be happening. It's like a good way to just check and make sure that everything that's happening is what you think it should be. So I'm just going to delete it because it's not necessary. Yeah. Yes.
Is there a way to, I'm trying to like put the console window on the bottom bar, but not getting away from the input? It's sort of like how you have it right now. Yeah. But I'm not sure.
Have that be script and then what this says as well.
I think this is what I have. Okay. Yeah, it seems like my script isn't working for
I had it on the it was like about whenever I roll over the bounce pad, it accesses the
We're using modules, so we're saying, okay, look for. No, because we're not. Because we're not doing anything with the floors on your enter. Oh, you mean the boundary? Yeah, the boundary should have.
Okay, should also have user.
Yeah. And then you practice those things before you start playing.
The ball did not bounce on the plane.
Huh?
With white large planes.
The plan is to make you respawn. Oh, do you know how to like make the surface, like a surface bounce a little bit? Because for instance, when I just like for instance, when it goes here, it kind of just hits the ground and just immediately falls flat. I think it just bounces a little bit better. Okay. I think it's it's also you can change the body. Yeah. Okay. I think I.
Okay. So is everyone good? Do you have a question?
I can add my splash to this bundle. It's just one bundle. Okay. Check this out.
Okay. Okay, is everyone good? We're gonna move on. So what we're gonna do now is, so our main game was to collect all these pickups, right? Let me just add some into the. You guys don't have to do this, but I just like to have them. I'm gonna add these pickups to our game, and the point of our game is to collect these yellow pickups, and once we collect all of them, we win the game, right? But right now, what we have is that we collect these pickups, and nothing really happens, right? So what we want is a way to show how many pickups we've picked up, and a way to tell the player that, oh, you beat the game, kind of thing, right? So I'm just gonna make some more pickups, just so the game is more legit. Yeah, so we should have, what I'm doing right now is I'm just dragging the pickup prefabs into the scene, just so we have something for the players to pick up. So right now we just have 3 pickups that we want the player to pick up. Yeah, so okay, so now what we're going to work on is, so hopefully you guys can see how you can make more interesting level designs. Like you could have like a little chasm, you can use the bounce pad to make it like crossover gaps, or you can have like a windy platform. Just anything you really want. You can use the prototyping assets, or you can make your own. But now what we're going to work on is UI. So what we're going to do is we're going to just show a simple UI to show how many pickups we've collected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into create. I'm going to create a UI object called text. Just to repeat that, I went into the hierarchy, and then I clicked create UI text. So right now, it didn't look like it did anything, but this is really important. You should go to the position Y and change it to 0. That'll fix. So now you can see that our text shows up into our game. I'm just going to move it to the top right because that's how I like it personally. I think like 300, 200, 250. And then I'm going to push it up. Yeah, so I'm just going to talk about what we just added to the scene. When we added the text object, the UI text, it brought in a canvas, a text, and an event system. So a canvas is just like a wrapper thing, so that we put all UI objects in. So if you looked in the create, we can create any of these. Like we can put in an image, a button, some kind of slider. All of that stuff goes under the canvas. The canvas object.
What kind of 3D object is that?
It's just like a flat, like imagine like a art painting. It's kind of like that, like a frame. It's like a frame to put all of your UI stuff in, but you put the actual like UI stuff in the canvas, and then the event system is if you wanted it. Like an interactable UI, so like if you want like a button or slider, you would use the event system. But since we're just using text, we don't really need to worry about it. So you can see here in the text, under the text object, we can there's a text script, and we can actually put whatever we want. So I'm going to just change it to pickups collected. I'm going to move it a little to the right.
Where should I make something or flip one?
Huh? Is everyone to this point? So I'm just going to repeat everything I did. I create 3D object. Oh no, sorry, not 3D object. UI text. Once I click that, we should get a canvas, a text, and an event system. In the text, go to the rectangular transform, and then change the positions to 180 and 50. Just anything that really works, but it should show up on your screen. And then you can also change the text under the text script and change the text in here. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, so script group pick up
This text like automatically follow you to the level.
Yeah, you can try it. Yeah, so as you can see, it always on the bottom left, it keeps where we are, or it keeps the pickups there.
Where should I put the subtitle of
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Is everybody? Oh yeah. Okay, so you mean like in the scene, like right here, right? Okay, so I'm pressing right click and then moving my mouse around. You have to hold right click though. You have to hold it.
Oh, I mean like the main camera.
Oh, the main camera. Okay, you want to go to the main camera and then just change the position and the rotation. So right now I have it at 0, 3, -5, and then I have a rotation of 20 to make it like look down. You can also go into the scene, and you can see the main camera has like these arrows too, so you can change it here too. So like you can see it move in the scene too, like that.
So yeah.
Okay. Is everybody up to this point, or does anybody need help getting to where we are? Okay, so now what we're going to want to do is, it says pickups collected, but it doesn't really have any like dynamic information, right? Because right now we have like 3. We want to tell the player how many pickups we need to collect and how many you have right now, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to add a script to our text component, not the canvas, the text. We're going to create a new script. I'm going to call it text controller. Under the text. Under text. Oops. And then I'm going to edit the script. Okay, so the very first thing we want to do when we're in the script is we're going to want to use using Unity engine.ui. So this is basically just saying, okay, there are a lot of things that Unity provides for us, but we don't want to use all of it because it'd be a pain to like import every single thing that Unity has, right? So what we're saying right now is we're saying, okay, I want to use Unity's UI system, and now we'll be able to use it for the rest of our script. So what we're going to want to do is the goal of this script is to figure out how many pickups there are in the scene, and then how many pickups we have right now, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two variables called it that are public, int total, and public int current. So these are just going to represent how many. So this is going to represent how many pickups total, and then how many pickups we have right now. So the very first thing we're going to want to do is figure out how many pickups there are in the scene when we first start. So this seems like something we would put into the start function. And what we're going to want to do is everything, just a quick side note, everything in here is a game object. And what we can do is we can look for certain types of game objects. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a private game object array called pickups. So if anyone doesn't know what an array is, but basically it's a collection of objects, a collection of game objects. So you could have I think of it kind of like a list in a way. So you could have an array of integers, which would be like 5, 4, 2, 1, just a list of certain things. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to say pickups equals game object dot find game objects with tag pickup. So this is similar to what we're doing with the onTrigger enter when we're comparing tags with the player. Instead of comparing tags with player, we're going to look for all objects that specifically have a tag called pickup. So we're another thing we're going to want to do is in our pickup prefab. Not in the scene. You need to go into your prefab folder or wherever you have the pickup, and then you're going to want to. Do you see how it says we don't have a tag right now? We're going to want to create. We're going to want to add a tag. So this is something you can do. Let's say you have enemy projectiles or ally projectiles. You can tag them in a specific way and then change your logic according to what is tagged. So for now, what we're going to want to do is we're going to create a new tag called pickup and then save it. So let me just redo that, just in case anyone missed that. I'm going to the pickup in the folder, not in the scene, because if you go into the scene, you'll change that specific one. So I'm going into the prefab folder, clicking pickup, going to tag, and then if you don't have the pickup tag, you go into add tag, and then in here you can add another tag. I just called it pickup.
Tag and layer, where's the...
Under tag. Okay, and then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, go to the tag, and then make it the pickup tag. And then because we changed it, this is a really important concept to get. So this is the classification of all pickups. So if I change something in the pickup prefab here, it'll apply it to every pickup that you have in the scene. So you can see that even though I only changed it here, right now all of our pickups that we added all have the tag pickup now, which is really nice. But if all of these, you can think of these as instances of our pickup prefab, which means that all of them are separate. They all have different transforms and positions, but they all carry certain aspects of the pickup that are important, like the pickup tag. So now that we have that, it should find all of our pickups. So what we can do is we can say that the total amount of pickups that we need is basically however long this list is, because what GameObject.find GameObjects with tag is doing is it's looking for everything with the tag pickup and then it's adding it into that list. So what we can do is total equals pickups.length, which is saying, okay, give me the length of however long this pickup array is, and then set it to total. Just to make sure it works, we can just debug log it real quick. Debug.log total. And then once we start, oh sorry. This is just what I like to do is when I make stuff, I like to do like incremental, like make sure things work as you go along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press play. And then it says 3, which makes sense because we have 3 pickups in our scene, right? And then we can just check to make sure it still works if I delete one. I'll just delete one real quick. Press play, and it should say 2. Yep. So there's, yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Has everyone reached this part, this stage?
It says 0, but it's probably
Yeah.
You said like the different level Java ones.
Oh, wait, no. So it creates it, it doesn't add it. So is it that or is it this?
Yeah.
So if you go back to the player, pick up the actual
Alright, is everybody good? Does everyone reach this stage? Okay, so now we can also just set our current to 0 because when it starts we'll never have any pickups. Just do that real quick. And then now what we want to do is we want to change the text depending on how many pickups are in the game and how many we picked up. So what we're going to want to do is change the text that our text controller is attached to. So something that we're going to want to do is what? We're also okay. First, what we're going to want to do is we're going to make a private text and text. And then we're gonna do something that we were using before, which is the get component. So this is what we're doing right now is what I was talking about before, where we are getting the text component of the thing that we are attached to. So let's go back to our text. Oops. You can see that there's the text script and then our text controller. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, get our text component, and then we're going to access its text with mtext.text. I'll show you later. So I'm just going to make a quick function, a private function called change text. This isn't completely necessary, but it's kind of nice. What this is going to do is that this function is going to take the text that in our text object, and we're going to set it to whatever we want. So this is saying, okay, take the text component and then set the text of the text component to our to whatever we want. So whenever we call this function, we pass in an argument. We can pass in like, oh, hi, or hello. So just to make sure this works, I'm just going to show you. I'm going to do change text and then hello. So in the update function, it's going to call our function change text. And it should, as we play it, change our pickups collected to hello. So that's a way that we can dynamically change our UI. Did everyone reach that stage?
You need help?
It's not changing it.
Yeah, so you can just add this to this So yeah, kind of to your text, I component, you're unique. Oh, sorry, you have to do it when you see that.
Oh yeah, right.
So your text you gotta remember something. I did something to my thing, and now I can't find yeah, so there's a thing you click this. I think it's fantastic. I think it's fun. I like this better. And then, so now, then you have the on this.
Well, let's say.
Okay, so now we have our we can change the text. So what we're gonna want to do is we're gonna want to say, okay, if current equals total, we want to change text to say you want. And then else, we want it to say pickups collect, we want it to say how many pickups we collected. So we'll do pickups collected plus current plus a slash and plus total. So what this is doing is we're saying, okay, we are the pickups you've collected is based on how much you currently have and how much you need to get. Did everyone get that? Okay. So now as we play the game, we should see that it shows how many. It shows 0 out of 3 for all the pickups that we've collected.
Whenever something so it's like I don't Has anyone not reached this point? Oh.
The pickup is not changed though.
So nice. So you guys help me? You like physics?
Is it possible that I can make a ball?
No. How about the thing I was interested in is making the camera for its use like wider in the air and you can do like a slightly overhead view temporarily. I was talking so yeah, actually I see. Maybe they wants to you have to oh yeah, how about doing controls like big space bar control doing something? Yeah. Jump or something. 133.
Okay, is everyone good or?
Wait, what? Okay. You have where was it? Because I called change text somewhere. Oh, you need to go forward fast enough. Oh shit! Yeah, right.
Where's that the one?
Yeah, so the thing is, Oh shit.
So we want to do that.
Yeah, so I'm just right now.
Yes.
Okay, so now that we have our simple pickups collected as 0 out of 3, we want to tell it like, oh, once we pick up a pickup, increase that UI text. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our pickup. We're going to go into the script that contains our pickup controller. So yeah, I'll just say that again. In our, go back to your assets folder. In the scripts, look for the pickup controller that we worked on last week. Yeah. So now that we're in here, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to look for our text controller script and then say, okay, so do you know how we had a public int called total? Or not total, current? This is saying how many we have, right? What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to find that text controller script and then increment our current by 1. So
How can I add the new folder?
add the what?
New folder for script.
Don't worry about that. It's not a big deal. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a text controller object. Oops. Text controller text equals objects dot find object of type text controller. So what this is doing is we're saying, okay, we need some kind of text controller, so we're going to find this is going to look for any kind of object of type text controller. And in this case, that's our script. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to go into our text and then increment our current by 1. So this is saying, okay, take whatever our value is now and just increment it by 1. Did everyone get that?
In this, I don't know, it's times like we'll be able to like respond to the pickups when we got it. It's pretty.
Yeah, we can do that, but we're not gonna have time today.
Oh, it's the same thing as we said. You made a text controller. So yeah, look at text controller. Kevin uses text controller.
So if it's not okay,
if it's not actually updating, so then you know the problem might be.
Yeah, so, okay, now that we have this script, when we go back into our scene, if we collect our pickups, it should, as you can see, it changes our UI to include that we picked up everything. And then once we get 3, it says you won. Yeah. Did everyone get to this point? Is everyone feeling good about it? Yeah, so now you can see how we can create more interesting levels with an actual goal in mind, now that we have like a U1 screen. So this is it for today, but next week we're going to go over some more things. So like right now we don't have like a start screen when we play the game, it just starts right away. We don't have like a game over or like a, I don't know, like a U1 screen. So we're going to talk about switching scenes. Yeah. And then, okay, wait, so can everyone listen up real quick? So yeah, this is it for today. Next week, what we're going to go over is we're going to go over textures, switching scenes, so like we have a start screen and end screen. Maybe we could even have like, okay, you collected all these pickups and then a certain area opens up. And then we're going to go over also animations. If you guys have any questions, just feel free to let us know. And we're also going to be having a competition. So by the end of this quarter, whoever can create the most interesting or exciting rollerball version, like some kind of level, like with levels and you know, whatever you want, will win prizes. I think the prize denominations are 40, 30, and 15 for first, second, and third place. 40, 20, and 15. So you'll have a chance to win that in Amazon gift cards or Steam gift cards, whatever you want. So yeah, just think about what we've learned today, and then think about any kind of interesting levels that you can create out of what we've learned today. Yeah, so thanks for coming. Oh yeah, everyone, there will also be a Blizzard info session tomorrow at 7 to 8. If you want to know what it's like to work at Blizzard, come by and you can talk to the university recruiter too. I totally suggest, and you have to RSVP, so go onto our Facebook group and RSVP there. And yeah, thanks for coming out, guys.